This story was submitted by Kate. I'm a female, and I was about 15 when this happened. A few years ago, I lived in a fairly safe neighborhood in Melbourne, Australia. On one end of the street was where my mom, stepfather, and I lived, and down on the other end was where my grandma lived. When I was a lot younger, my mom would walk me down to my grandma's house before she left for work, so my grandma could get me ready for school and walk me down, since my stepfather worked nights and needed sleep. Walking between the two houses wasn't an uncommon thing to do, and I did this quite frequently. There was a park across the road from the houses, but the street was well lit and it didn't bother me. I felt safe. My parents had started having problems, and eventually my mom and I moved down into my grandma's house while they tried to work things out. Since my stepfather still worked nights, I would have to walk up to his house and let myself in at around 8 to feed our pet dog. Since my grandma didn't have internet, I'd stay in the house for a couple of hours to get my daily internet fix before locking up and heading back to my grandma's. The next night, just like every other night, I made my way up the street to the house, when out of nowhere, I had a funny feeling that I was being watched. I glanced over to the park and saw nothing. I sighed to myself and chalked it up to me being paranoid, as I sometimes could be. The feeling soon left me as I went inside, fed the dog, and began my browsing session. A couple hours had gone by, so I decided it was time for me to head home. I turned the lights and the TV off, packed up my laptop, and reached for the door handle. That's when it happened. The door handle started to jiggle from the other side. I then heard soft footsteps walking from the front door to the garage door. I then heard the garage door jiggle, followed by the sound of the footsteps returning to the front door. I felt my stomach drop, and my heart began to pound. After staying absolutely still in silence for around 5 minutes, I began to think maybe it had just been some kind of prank one of my neighbor's kids was pulling. Then the jiggling started again, accompanied by a scraping sound, like a blade being dragged across the door. I stupidly moved to the window and peeked from the corner of the blinds to see a figure at the door, and the glint of a blade as it was scraped across my door. That's when I quietly backed away into the kitchen and immediately picked up one of my stepfather's hunting knives. It didn't make me feel safe at all. People talk a lot about adrenaline and how they'd become a badass in these situations. I'll admit, I was guilty of this, but I was reduced to nothing. I almost felt so scared that I could pee myself. I know it's stupid, but I pulled out my phone and instantly began dialing my mom's number. I always rolled my eyes when I listened to encounters where they didn't ring the police straight away, but in that moment it made sense. Like my mom could somehow make everything better. She answered groggily, pissed off I'd woken her up since she had an early start the next day, but was soon alerted when she heard my voice. "There's someone outside, with a knife. Help," I whispered, as hot tears began to spill from my eyes. I heard my mom calling out to my grandma to call the police, and when my grandma asked what was wrong, she quickly explained the situation. That's when I heard my mom shout, "No! Don't go up there!" The line was filled with the sound of running, and within seconds I heard my grandma's voice outside on the front lawn. "You've got some fucking nerve, kid!" she screamed. I heard the sound of hurried footsteps breaking into a run from the door. "Get the fuck back here!" my grandma screamed once again. "Let him go, Mom!" I heard my mom's voice catching up to her. My grandmother told me it was okay to open the door, and I hesitantly opened it to see my 4'9" grandma in her nightgown, standing there, with a knife in her hand. She'd come up the street as soon as she heard what was happening, and had gone full-on batshit chasing after the man who had been at the door. I was horrified to see the scratch marks on the wood above the handle, and dents to the handle itself. The police took a look around, and didn't really do much at all. They took our statements, and said there wasn't much that could be done. To this day, they haven't caught the guy. I don't know who it was, or why he wanted to get in so bad. I think maybe he had been watching our pattern of going between the houses and pinpointed when I'd be home alone. It scared me enough to never go back to the house alone at night, and I couldn't sleep for months. My grandma became even more of a hero to me that night. She's fearless and an absolute warrior. We've since moved, and I'm still very paranoid about hearing sounds. If I use headphones, I only have one in my ear and on a low volume, and I hate being in any room of the house alone. This story was submitted by AUBRIANA. Let's start by saying that I'm a 20-year-old female living in San Diego, California, and this happened a few months ago. I don't drive, so I walk to places when my husband is at work. My neighborhood isn't the best, but I'm good at making myself look mean so people don't approach me. I was on my way to the 7-Eleven in the middle of the day, about 5 minutes from my house. It was a beautiful day, and everything was going fine, as usual. I was about to cross the crosswalk leading to our retirement center when a man in a black Charger with red pinstripes waves at me. He was sitting at a crosswalk waiting for me to cross. I waved back politely and kept going. I saw him pull into the 7-Eleven, and I instantly got a bad gut feeling. I brushed it off as me being paranoid, since I have anxiety, and I worry a lot about silly things. It's not unusual that someone goes to 7-Eleven. It's a pretty popular place in my area. I go into the store to buy sunflower seeds, and I get a good look at who was driving the car. He's thin and blonde, a little dirty looking, and he looks hardly older than me. He doesn't look scary or tough. He just looks like a college kid. But the way he kept staring at me made me feel very uneasy. I was looking at some donuts, and he was suddenly right behind me, just staring at me. I honestly get stared at a lot, because I tend to have a unique look to myself. But this time it didn't feel right. I knew it wasn't right. He was way too close. My heart rate sped up, and I went up and paid for my things. He was right behind me at the cash register, so I bolted out as fast as I could, without making myself look crazy, and began fast walking home. The 7-Eleven is a straight shot from my apartment. You walk down a long main road until you turn into the neighborhood where the apartment is. I'm walking down the street, feeling better, when he drives past me. I have to cross the crosswalk where he is stopped at to get to my neighborhood, so I started walking very slowly. He will have a green light before I get there, and he'll have to drive away, I thought. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I figured it was better to be safe than sorry, though, so I slowed down even more. No one had ever made me feel so uncomfortable, and I couldn't ignore it. The green light comes on, and he just sits there. He doesn't move. He starts waving to me to come up to his car. My heart is racing in panic, and I stop dead. Another car pulls up behind him, so he finally starts driving. I run to the crosswalk, and as I cross, I see him pull into a shopping center and turn around. I hurry into the neighborhood, hoping he doesn't see me. I am in full-on panic mode at this point, and I almost start crying when he drives past me again. I know he's following me now. What does he want? I don't have anything to protect myself, and I see now that his windows are tinted, which makes me even more afraid. I'm on the right side of the street, and he turns right, out of my view, which happens to be where my apartment complex is, which I also know is a dead-end road. I don't see him turn around. I know he parked, waiting for me. I know I should have turned back around and gone to a store, but I was panicking and I wanted to get home. I turn right, and I see him, parked on the right side of the sidewalk where I have to walk, car still running. I would have to run within inches of his car. I wanted to cry. I ran by as fast as I could, and he did nothing as I rushed into my complex. I unlock my front door and rush in to call the police. They tell me that because I didn't get a license plate number, there's nothing they can do. I felt defeated. They say that if I see him following me again, though, to call 911. When my very protective husband got home, he went looking for the car where I told him it had pulled out of, but found nothing. I didn't leave the house for a while after that, and now I carry pepper spray. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't have trusted my gut feeling. There could have been multiple people in the car. The windows were so tinted there was no way to tell. I could have been the next missing person. I know it may sound overdramatic, but I have never been so scared of another human being in my life. A small blonde college kid nonetheless. Something was wrong with him though, as if stalking me didn't make that obvious. I'm just glad I had to never find out what though. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, you should catch up on times. Welcome to YouTube. For the first story, before I say anything, I think I have to state the obvious. Your grandma is a frickin' badass. That is what I'm talking about. That is how a mama protects her cubs and her grandcubs right there. Big props to grandma on that one. Now, although I don't completely agree with you not calling the police immediately, obviously your decision worked. I'm glad you all made it out of the situation okay, and once again, big props to grandma. For the second story, it's awesome that you decided to start carrying mace now. It's just unfortunate that you didn't have it to make yourself feel better when this whole situation happened. It's very wise to always have personal protection on you at all times, especially nowadays. Unfortunately, you don't know much about the guy, but hopefully he disappeared and you won't have to see him again. As you stated, it may have been wise to run to the store rather than show him where you live in case he already didn't know. But at the same time, at least you have a protective husband at home. I appreciate everyone sending in their stories, and if you would like a chance to have your story featured in a video, make sure you check out the description to see how to submit them. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and just remember,
it's always scarier
if it's true.